Hello and welcome to another bodgit and leggit video. Today we are talking about 2003 Toyota Corolla 1.4 VVTi. Now, all I know about it is he drove it home and it wouldn't start again. Simple as that. He was using it all day, drove it home, came back out, nothing happened. So, that kind of suggests to me battery problems maybe, start motor problems, possibly alternator, if the alternator's gone, not charging the battery, kind of along them sort of lines. The ignition lights come on but nothing happens. So first what I'm going to do is check the battery. I'm going to go through kind of the checks I'm going to do. The battery does look old and kind of crusty, so even if the battery's good, it's maybe no harm to change it because it does look like it's been there a few years. Most batteries, they only really last for like 4 to 6 years depending. Any longer than that it's just kind of a thing waiting to happen for it to go. So we're going to test the battery first, see what voltage we've got and go from there. Right, so as you can see, a lot of crusty, crappy crap on the battery. So, let's put my old tester on and see what we've got. Now, we've only got 9.7 volts. Which is obviously nowhere near enough to start this. Now, is that because the alternator is wrong? Or sorry, the alternator isn't charging? Is that because the battery is gone? Well, the easiest way to test that is put jump leads on it. I'm going to jump this and see if it starts with a jump, then we know it's the battery. If it doesn't start with the jump, we know then we've maybe got a starter motor problem. So I'm going to check that first on C. Now I've just plonked a spare battery I have. Can't really see it, it's just off camera. Just see it there. 12.6 volts. Now this should hopefully be enough for me to connect to this with jump leads without having to put another vehicle on. So we're going to connect the jump leads. Have to be careful. Positive first, and then positive. And then negative to negative. Now there's a bit of a spark there, I don't know if that's coming across. That's a good sign, it means the battery is taking it. I have a funny feeling maybe the battery's gone off this. About it. Just check the voltage now. Voltage is 12.2, so let's see if it even attempts to start this. Okay, we have absolutely nothing still. So next I'm going to check. Could be a fuse, even though the battery lights are coming on, but it still could be a fuse, could be a main fuse. Double check the main big fuses, they all seem okay. Just going to check the lights, make sure the lights turn on, to make sure we've got some sort of power going to something. Yeah, we have power. Have lights, we have the horn and a few bits. Still could be a fuse. I'm going to leave that battery on there for a minute just to charge it. I'm going to lift it up on the lift and I'm just going to check the connections to the starter motor. I'm going to check just connections to the alternator as well. Now nothing looks loose or anything like that, the wires look good. I'm going to lift this up and we'll check underneath to see what's going on, because at the minute I can't see anything that's that obvious. Well, I was just lifting this up to see if I could see anything kind of wrong, and I've just noticed kind of a big problem. I took off the little plastic cover there because I noticed that this drive shaft, as you can see, is just hanging down, completely snapped. Because I was going to suggest what you can do to check if it's the starter motor is basically bump start the car. So get someone to push it, put it in gear and bump start it. But as you can see, that is not going to work on this case, so I can't even do that. So we have a couple of problems now. We have obviously a drive shaft problem and I have a starting problem. Now again, I can't see anything obvious at the minute which wouldn't cause it to start. That won't cause the problem with the car not starting. That will cause a problem with the car not driving, but it won't cause a problem with starting. So I've got to now try and figure out why it's not starting first, as well as this drive shaft problem. Lovely. Right, so what I've done is I've just got a second-hand battery, which is a million times better than that. I think that one's just completely and utterly gone. It just will not put the charge through. It's just draining it quicker than it can basically hold it. Now, this one is putting out 12.5 volts, so I know the battery is good. What I did find though is when I put it onto the nut, which is basically going down to, now it's showing 12.5. I put onto this nut which is going down to the starter motor, and it was only showing like 9 volts before. See, that's the main wire I've got it on now. It's 0.3. It's going up and down. If I scratch it, as you can see, it's flickering too much. So it could just be a really bad connection. So I'm going to take this connection off, get some sandpaper and just rub it, just to see before I actually start taking off the starter motor. What I'm going to do then is I'm going to put it back on the lift, and I'm going to put my electrical connection onto the power wire of the starter and see what voltage is coming there. So I'm going to try this first, bit of sandpaper, take it off, rub it down, put it back together and see what happens. I've cleaned that. I've cleaned every surface of the front, back, everything on this connection and the actual one that bolts onto the battery. So that's all been cleaned. And as you can see, it doesn't fluctuate now anymore. It's staying at 12.4. I don't think that was the problem. I've just quickly tried it there again and still nothing. But it's a thing that could possibly cause it, so we have to kind of make sure it's not that. Tick it off the list, so to speak. Now, it still could be a fuse. The main fuses are okay, but it still could be the starter fuse, the little kick wire on the starter motor that's normally quite a low amperage fuse. But what I'm going to try now is I'm going to lift this up. I'm going to try and see what power is coming to the starter motor. Now my ignition is on, that's important. Turn your ignition on before you do this, so it can send all the power, do what it needs to do, so the relay's open and all that stuff. So let's get up on the lift and see what voltage we got at the starter. Now, I don't know if I'm going to be able to film this very good because the starter's in an awkward place. There's my little clamp for my multimeter. There's my multimeter. And right under here is the starter. Now, I don't think I'm going to be able to film this. I'll try, but I don't think I can. I'm just going to move the little rubber cap off and just see if I can get that to there. Now, we're only getting 8 volts, which is nowhere near enough to the starter. Oh, you can see that. So, I have a funny feeling the starter's okay on this. We've got a problem with a wiring issue. So a bad earth, bad connection, something kind of along them lines. Now I'm starting to think it's definitely the starter. What I've actually done is, now I don't suggest you to do this because depending on the car, like with CAN bus and stuff, you can't get away with this. You'll pop the ECU, you'll do serious damage. I've basically put direct power to the starter motor. So I've got this clip on the connection where the power comes in, and I've just basically bolted it or clamped it directly to the battery. Now we are getting, this is going to come across, we are getting 12.5 volts directly to the starter, and it still isn't doing anything. And we've got no fuses that are gone. so I know it's not a fuse problem. The fuses in this, they're just a low amp fuse. Depending on your car, they might be slightly different. You'll get a little symbol maybe saying start or ignition, something kind of like that. That will give you an idea of where you're, because obviously it's different for each car. It's just very cramped, so I couldn't get the camera in to try and do that. So we know it's not a fuse, and I put direct power now. So I'm kind of in the mind now that it's the starter. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to quickly whip out the starter, and I can test it on the floor to see if it's kicking or turning or doing anything. And hopefully it doesn't, because if it does, it means we've got another problem somewhere else. So I'm going to whip out the starter. I can't film it, but basically it's 2 bolts. Just 1 bolt's under here and 1 bolt's just at the top. There's no way I can get to film it, unfortunately. But once I get it out, I'll show you where the bolts are. It might make a bit more sense to you. Right, the starter motor is out. It is down there just beside the slave cylinder for the clutch. We have 1 bolt which we can get from the top and 1 bolt we need to get from the bottom. Both 14mm. Like I said, unfortunately I couldn't show you. But before we do that, we have to disconnect the battery. Now, I was going to test this to show you how to test it, but there isn't any point because I can clearly see what's wrong. Hopefully it's coming through on camera. It's just completely, as you can see, this strap here, look, just completely and utterly, well, it's just dissolved, completely dissolved. That is really, really rusty as well. So there's no point in putting the jump leads on because nothing's going to happen. But at least we know this is the problem with it not starting. So we need a battery, we need a starter motor, we need a drive shaft. Do we get a new drive shaft or second-hand one? Well, it all depends on the price. New parts are obviously better, but second-hand ones are obviously cheaper. The downside to second-hand ones is how long they're going to last. You know, that's obviously you can't say, but we'll price them up and we'll see. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to leave it here, part 1 for this video. I wasn't actually expecting this video to turn out like this. So this is going to be part 1. And part 2, well, let's see, I don't know if it's going to fix it because there's a few other bits it needs. It needs a service, it needs tyres. Everything kind of together could be quite expensive. So if there's no other part to this video, well then you know nothing's being done. So that's it. Look, hope it helps. Thumbs up and subscribe, and don't forget, get your hands dirty. See you for the next one.